Roll for Crit is made possible thanks to the support of viewers like you and our patrons on our Patreon page.
You can become a patron for just $1 a month at patreon.com/rollforcrit. Welcome to Roll for Crit. Right now we are being joined by Chris from Solis Game Studios, and you guys have an exciting project right now on Kickstarter called Pocket Paragons, which is a 2-player dueling card game. For anyone who hasn't had the chance to see it yet, could you just run through exactly what that is? Introduce yourself, the studio, the idea behind the game, and also, by the way, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm Chris Solis. I've recently created Solis Game Studios. I used to work for other tabletop companies in the past, but now I'm making my own games as a publisher. Pocket Paragons is our second project. And Pocket Paragons is a short asymmetrical dueling game that can be played anywhere. It's a cross-IP kind of game. So the idea is you get a Pocket Paragon set from this series, and this Pocket Paragon set exists from this series. They can fight. You can make teams. And the game does play in 3 to 15 minutes, maybe 20 if you do the tournament mode, and we'll go into those details. But what really makes Pocket Paragon stand is this fighting game feel that's condensed into like an actual 3-minute duel. In any other game, saying that you could lose on the first or second turn is terrible. But in this game, because of the way it works, it's more of an excitement. There's always a pressure tool, and we designed the whole experience around the micro doses of that.
We got the chance to play a bit ourselves thanks to the demo copy you sent us. And right off the bat, I played a certain card that can be instant killed if the opponent plays a specific card. So John's like, "Wow, I could have killed you like first turn, first game." And, I was lucky he didn't go with it either, but it was a fun gamble.
Yeah, totally.
But like you said a crossover idea. Like, I know there are plenty of fighting games that do crossovers, Marvel vs. Capcom. Is that the inspiration for crossover? Is it more like you just want to see more board game crossover? Like, what made you decide we're going to go all in on crossover instead of maybe like, a lot of our own IP and then maybe like 1 or 2 crossover promos or something?
So we had to modify this because of, the situation with the world, but the Pocket Paragons was made as a convention game. The idea was you go to like PAX or something, you come to our booth to get the base game. Then you can go to our friends' tabletop section. They have Pocket Paragons, and people will discover it separately as different products, right? Oh, this is a cool dueling game for this game. Wait, it's cross-compatible with that one? And that was the general idea, which is why the whole game is playable while you can stand in line, you can play the tournament form sitting down, you can play quickly. All around that experience. So we had to modify that, and hopefully we get back to that at some point. But that's a big reason we wanted to do this IP thing. So then that way it's kind of like visit different spaces, meet different characters, and mix different styles of play and whatnot.
That's a fun idea. It's almost like different companies have a little piece of ownership of it, so they can sell it in their own way. And yeah, like you said, that's discovering it in different places. That's a fun idea. This is not your first time involved with a card game that has crossovers in it. You worked before with Level 99 on Exceed, which had Shovel Knight and other characters come into play there. How has your history over there with card games in general? I guess, what did you bring to the table from that experience for this new studio, and in particular with Pocket Paragons?
Yeah, so my time at Level 99 Games was like a massive experience game. There was definitely a lot to learn there. They know what they're doing. And I got to meet all kinds of new people and skill sets and connections and whatnot, right? So when I worked on Exceed, worked on with the Double Team a little, worked on assembling the game, worked on like meeting people at conventions to try to expand Exceed to other brands. So after they had Shovel Knight, I got to try to get the Dead Cells license and the Robot Named Fight license. I worked with getting the BlazBlue license with Jack Leforian, who worked there at the time. And just kind of experienced what that's like how you get people to notice you, care about your product, and make it mutually beneficial for both parties. So, that's a huge gain on going to a convention. When we got Dead Cells, we just kind of went over there, introduced ourselves, and we're like, yo, you want to hang out? And then we pitched it later. It's just it's about being social in the right time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then pitching your product. And we showed them Exceed, and they thought it was awesome. So, why not build brands both ways? So, after level 99, I carried that skill set to, other doing it again for Pocket Paragons. Starting with a smaller slice because it's a new studio and my clout's been reset. But, moving forward with Pocket Paragons, we have some other stuff lined up. So hopefully it continues to grow as a series.
I'm definitely curious what those other ones lined up, but I'm sure we need to wait in due time for them.
Yeah.
But I really do love it. It didn't occur to me, like you said earlier, with the conventions, because one, I love the idea of going to different booths, collecting it, sort of like either the scavenger hunt at Gen Con or maybe some of the pins you see, at PAX, any of the PAX conventions. But also, you mentioned how it's a much smaller game you could play, like when you're in line or something. How do you take that and make sure it's something that's still satisfying? Like there's plenty of games that are small, but then we're like, yeah, we get it. We're done. But sometimes when you get that small experience and you still are happy with it, instead of, a lot of people are like, I'm not happy unless I get 3 hours out of my game, How do you make sure it's still satisfying in the small confines of the time you want it to play in?
Yeah, so I think that for the conventions, hey, do you have time for a quick game? Like you were saying, you could lose on the first turn, right? So you have the time. There's always a good time for a game of Pocket Paragons. But once both players know what they're doing, that's more unlikely to happen unless you intentionally took that risk, right? And it goes to a longer format. There needs to be a constant pressure and a constant threat. If a game is short, we generally use that as, I don't want to say an excuse, but it's like, oh, the game is short. It's okay if you're that far behind. The game will be over soon. You know that energy, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Pocket Paragons, that is, it doesn't matter how far behind you are, you could still win, right? So that moment is always intense,
Right.
And it's really designed, like I said, around a fighting game. We thought about the way our cards interact and like a Yomi circle and what beats what, and how to create situations where the player is thinking about states in the game and different 50-50s, right, and stuff like that. And we make as many of those as possible, Like, do you understand the 50-50 that's happening right now? Do you? If you do, it's an interesting moment. And then next turn, it's a different type of interaction. And then a few turns later, back to 50-50. It's kind of like a wave to make sure people always feel like they understand their opponent. The simplicity of the game helps with that as well. Yeah.
Actually, I want to ask about that with the card design, because if you have not checked out the Kickstarter yet, obviously you should. But in the rules, you can play a best out of 3 and sometimes carry a card over should you lose. So how do you design that? So because obviously if you have a bunch of fighters, you want to make sure they still feel like I'm playing this guy versus this girl, but make sure that it's worthwhile to carry a card over.
Yeah, totally. So you can play the longer format, the tournament mode, which is definitely I'm going to play in my living room sit down format. You pick 3 fighters, and then you play them in a best of 3. So I'll have my opener, my middle, and my anchor. When you defeat one of my characters, I will choose one card and pass it down. You can pass down almost every ability in the game. There's a few exceptions with a little no symbol, but almost every ability in the game. And the way we made that not busted is that a character's kit is a series of symbols. They have a physical attack, an agility attack, and intelligence attack, right? And they all have different levels of power that we've determined internally in development they can exist. We choose a character to have a primary stat and then design around it, right? And the symbol can only replace the other symbol. So I can only pass down a physical move from one character to another character. So I'm only improving their physical move or their intelligence move or their agility move. And that allows us to, make sure it's not degenerate. And actually, you're upgrading parts of your kit, right? It allows us to preemptively gate it. At the same time, it prevents things like there's only one execute attack. So you can't, stack those or anything like that. You still have your one rest card. And that keeps the game fundamentally working. That being said, because of the power budget we give each level, we generally know that when you move an ability down, about how much it goes up by, right? And what generally your power level will be back on the third character. In terms of the interaction of how am I going to combine my characters in what order to make some like effect combo that's insane. We've played it a lot, but we obviously haven't played them a lot, so we're really interested to see what people come up with. But we've done our best to make sure that math-wise it is sound. So yeah.
So hopefully down the line you don't ever have to say, we found out that it's now illegal to pair these two together because it results in some unbeatable combo or something like that.
Something infinite. Something will happen. You don't know where, but someone will find that infinite combo.
Well, even if they find up some really degenerate combo, if we're careful about the way the weapon and rest interact, there's always an out. There's always a way I can get you. You can do your powerful combo. You're going to need to rest to get it back. And if you're going to be greedy about it, then I'm going to crit you pretty easily. So in a way, a well-engined deck can become a little predictable too. So the human psychology of it was always going to be a control valve.
Yeah, I think that that aspect of the tournament mode where you can exchange cards in between rounds, like we were saying, is another thing that adds kind of a meta layer to it, so that even though, like we were saying, it's a pretty quick game, and you have the potential to win or lose maybe at any moment, there are these outside layers of knowing, as you said, like what's the 50-50, what does my opponent know, what's still in their hand, what do they have available, what maybe do they have coming up that I want to think about for the next round. So while the minute-to-minute choices are relatively simple, there's still a lot in your mind going into it. I think that helps to make it more satisfying. But now we talked about the tournament mode and then the kind of the quick play. There's another mode that you have right now as a stretch goal, which is the solo mode for the game. How exactly does that work, and how did you develop that?
Yeah, so just to be clear, I'm actually not the designer of Pocket Paragons. I'm the publisher. So designer Brian McKay, and he's responsible for these systems. Just want to get that out there. But I will talk about them because I know everything about them. So, right?
Please.
So, the solo mode. It's actually pretty interesting. You have a deck of ability cards. It's 10 cards that have symbols on them, right? And on the AI's turn, you flip over a card, and you resolve the topmost unexhausted ability, right? Now, even though that's what generally happens, there's also a character card that tells you which of those ability cards you put into their deck. And with the magic of math, we can create general play patterns to be like AI characters will generally do this first, and then this is a second order strategy. But, it's the deck's still random, so it's inconsistent on how often and when it happens. So yeah, it's that simple. It's really interesting to see, like, oh yeah, this agility bound character is really going to focus on that, or this diverse character is going to make sure they play their abilities evenly. Like, they have actual play patterns, which is awesome, right? There's also an ability on the solo mode character. So if you want to, you can training mode against it to just like try, right, and see what that character plays like. But you can play with that extra effect for a challenge that gives the solo player like a huge advantage. So you need to understand the system, game it, and dance around that ability, and that's kind of an interaction. There's also Gauntlet Mode, which is basically a 3v3 solo mode. We haven't talked about this on the Kickstarter yet, but we'll make a post about it soon. Same idea. The Gauntlet Mode is kind of like, this is the AI's 3-character team. These are the cards they pass down with each of the dictated AI, right? Can you win? Plus a Gauntlet ability, it's like crazy powerful. So you need to like really get in there and figure it out. Also, the Gauntlet Mode card is teams that we think are pretty awesome across various sets. So if you enjoy playing against that, you might get an idea like, yeah, I'm going to build that team. I'm going to use that team against this guy. To also showcase the interaction of passing down abilities in versus mode.
Definitely interesting, and that then supports more of, like you said, getting more sets and teams. But as of right now, I think when you buy a set of 6. Is that like the general plan is always going to be 6? Is there ever going to be just like the 1 because you can't come up with 6? Or would there ever be like a bigger pack of like, this is the whole universe of game B or something?
In general, by default, box will always be 6 heroes, 6 paragons, right? Though we do have a couple different modules. I'm not going to say we're not going to make a bigger bundle in the future. We might, whatnot, right?
Mhm.
But we actually had a plan to give away a lot of characters. So you have the boxes. Again, this is kind of related to our convention plan. So now we're spinning it a little differently with our stretch goals. And hopefully after COVID, we could do this in our first return to conventions when it's time. But the idea is like, hey, we're at PAX East. If you just show up at our booth, you can have these 2 Pocket Paragon characters, right? So if you already have the game, you're going to come collect them, right? You might go to another booth and get some more. And if you've never heard of it, it's basically here's a free demo deck, right? So everyone can play Pocket Paragons off those free demo characters. And if you have the characters, no overlap. So if you bought the box, there's different characters, of course, right? The storage solution's there. The box has the dividers. You might be like, man, I want to fill my box with more stuff. I should just show up and get free stuff. And then by doing so, I could play more Pocket Paragons with more people. So we're trying to cultivate a community by having these micro packs over time. But again, there's no overlap with the actual core content of the box, so it's it's different.
Yeah,
and that was our general strategy.
Yeah, you came up with a great idea, just the wrong time. Just a year too early. This
the
would've
wrong
been
time for everything this year.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, that's true.
Unfortunately, I mean, so obviously, like this game was kind of built around and is perfect for being expandable and buying different packs of sets of characters and mixing them how you want. How far out have you planned? Do you have ideas for a lot of future cards or future crossovers? Maybe companies that you're already talking to?
Yeah, we're talking to a bunch of companies. I can't say who, but we are thinking of we're planning for success. So if it does well, we'll definitely do a season 2. Yeah, we're moving forward. Again, we're planning it for. Again, it's down the line. I don't want to make it seem like hasty. This is probably like a late 2021 thing, but one day when conventions go back, we'll be ready, and that's kind of the plan. When we make Pocket Paragons fun for that kind of environment. But until then, we just got the Kickstarter, and that's fine. We want to be safe about it.
Yeah, you've talked about approaching the different companies, whether it was with Level 99 and now for Pocket Paragons. Has everybody been very receptive and everyone's been excited and on board? Is there like maybe a dream crossover that you think you probably would never be able to get, but if you could throw it in there, like from any medium that you have your hopes set on maybe in the future?
Oh man, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of IPs that would be dream IPs to work with. So it's hard to say who I would pick, but something like Fire Emblem would be insane, right?
Cool.
Something that, I would love to work with a huge IP like that. That'd be marvelous. But yeah, again, we're talking to people, and really just the reaction's been great. I think now that the Kickstarter's out, a lot of people we're talking to are more likely to act now that they see that it exists. We're funded, so it's going to happen. And like the media kit I gave you, we're using that to talk to people and show, hey, we're a real company. This game exists. And you can play it right away. You got to experience it.
Yeah, it's very easy to get your head around, get it set up, and
got them all right here.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like there's not that much you have to do. You have the cards, like you said, you can kind of play it anywhere, so it's very convenient in that way. Now, you did mention other projects in the work beyond Pocket Paragons. Is there anything you can maybe tease about your plans for that?
Yeah, I mean, let's see. The next project we're going to do, and it's public, is a larger version of Temporal Odyssey. So we're going to make a second edition plus additional content. It's going to be like a story-bound drafting battle card game. So that seems really weird. So I'm really excited about that. That's going to be our first huge, more board gamey community kind of project. So more on that later. Then following that, we're gonna release a new IP. So I can't say anything about that right now, but there's plans. Yeah.
Excited, and presumably all of these things will also enter into Pocket Paragons at some point.
Yeah, we got Temporal Pocket Paragons. So whatever the next IP is from us will definitely be Pocket Paragons. But that being said, we don't want to use our IPs too much. We really want to get into the video games zone. We really want people that go to conventions frequently.
I mean, I would too if it wasn't deadly.
That's the dream.
Yeah, those companies is what I So yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. The more people that we can draw into the tabletop space and spread that love is always better.
Yeah, that's also another point. Like, there's a huge amount of video gamers that are not part of tabletop.
Right.
Not to say they wouldn't like it, but maybe they don't know. It's not accessible to them yet. Pocket Paragons is very accessible, easy to understand. And even though the game comes with dials and there's a playmat for like that want to sit down experience, you could play without it. You know, it's not the worst to keep track of your 10 health.
Oh, not at all. I don't think.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it works just fine. Yeah. Well, anything else that you want to plug? Obviously, if people want to check out the Kickstarter, it's got just under a couple weeks right now, the time of this recording. We will put a link in the description where you can find more information. Anywhere else people can follow you or the studio online?
Yeah, we got a Twitter account, Solis Game Studio, Twitter and Facebook. Twitter's our probably most active platform. Also, if you follow us on Twitter, we have stretch goals to get more characters for free into the Kickstarter, so you should definitely follow us and get some free stuff.
Yeah, don't say no to free stuff. Yeah, again, we both got the chance to play it just a little bit, but it's a lot of fun. There's some cool stuff in there. There's some Aegis content. We're fans of that game as well, so there's some fun stuff, and I'm excited to see what else gets added to the game in the future because it is funded, so we're gonna see it.
Awesome, yeah, for sure, absolutely. I'm excited to make more Pocket Paragons.
Yeah, and I mean, like, obviously, if you're a fan of an IP that's in there, then dive in. But I mean, if you're also a fan of just fighting games, something to have on the go, you got to check that. Also, if you're a collector, because as you said, if and when we go to conventions, this is gonna be such a fun thing to run around and complete your set for that year. Definitely check out this game.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. It has been fun. Again, Pocket Paragons. Check it out in the description below on Kickstarter right now. And this has been Roll for Crit. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.
Thanks for having me.
We would love it if you liked and subscribed to this channel and supported us on Patreon as well.
If you choose to support us, turn to page 25.